This week on LCARA Ham Radio, we're going to take a look at the Compactenna microBEAM dual band antenna. Different looking antenna, but will it work at a distance? We do both repeater checks and a little bit of simplex. That's what's coming up next this week on LCARA Ham Radio. Alrighty, so we're at hopefully the soon-to-be Perry compound property here. Now, this is down in Middle Tennessee and about 51 miles away from the 88 repeater, which is our strongest repeater. Now, I've got the Compactenna, just the regular one, here on the back driver's side corner, if you will. And this is where I get pretty good usage out of it as well as performance. Just the straight up one. It is not a Yagi. It is not a whip, as you can tell. It looks like a small little tube here. And I can pick up the repeater from here. I can't open it, but I can pick up the repeater from here. I can definitely receive. And here in just a minute, we'll show you receiving a little bit of audio, and you'll see it barely moves the needle on my Yaesu FTM 400. So let's show you a little bit of the Cantenna as it's currently positioned and so forth, and how well it receives. And then what we'll do is we'll switch over to the antenna of this video, the microBEAM 2 meter 70 centimeter dual beam antenna, and we'll see if we can get better performance. So let's go into the truck. Let's see what kind of reception we get. So here we are in my truck, and trying to put this where there's not much glare on the head unit here of the FTM 400. So what I like about the FTM, the color screen and everything, but the screen is relatively large as well, so it's fairly easy to see. And you'll notice that nothing coming through at the moment, but what we'll do is we'll try to catch this when it's doing an ID or when one of the other members is using it, and we'll see how strong it is coming in based on the current orientation. Now, my truck is pointed essentially north. The antenna, or the repeater that I'm trying to listen to, is north by northeast, just a little bit different, or just about maybe 8-10 degrees to my right as we're facing forward in the truck. So let me show you facing out of the truck. This is pointed north, and the antenna is pointing kind of where that telephone pole is, or that power pole is. But if you notice, there's a building in the distance there to the right of the pole. That's kind of where the antenna would be. So we're going to keep an eye here, and we're going to see how strong the signal is. Again, this is just with the Compactenna. This is not the microBEAM. Alrighty, so you can see we can receive the repeater. Now, this is just with a Compactenna up on the truck roof, my Ford F-150. If I try to bring up the repeater, KY4 BDP mobile, you can see we don't get any kind of a reply back from the repeater. So it barely was moving the strength meter on the display for the repeater with, again, just the Compactenna on the roof. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to the microBEAM, and we don't know if we can get into the repeater from here, but we're going to give it a try. And it's also going to be a little bit taller, a little bit higher, because it'll be on at least 2 lengths of our drive-on mast lengths that we have, the poles. So let's switch over to the microBEAM. We'll show you a little bit of footage of what this looks like, and then we'll try to reach into the repeater. So coming up next, the microBEAM from 51 miles away. Alrighty, so we've seen what the current setup is. Now I have one more pole to give us 3 lengths, just in case maybe the height would be helpful. We don't know that yet here at this distance, but we're definitely going to be able to tell when we do receive the next ID. We'll be able to see a much better receive signal than what we had just a moment ago with just the compact antenna up on the roof of the truck. So let's see if we can crack open the repeater with the microBEAM currently oriented towards the north by northeast. KY4 BDP testing. So nothing's coming back from the repeater even with the microBEAM up in the air, 2 lengths of pole in this particular case. So we will wait for the ID just to see what the reception sensitivity looks like, and then we will go up to a 3rd pole from this location just to see if maybe we can crack open the repeater. Keep in mind there are hills, some low mountains between here and the repeater. I have used a Yagi from this location and was able to get into the repeater okay, not great, but okay, and was hoping that the microBEAM could do something similar. But this may be at the outer limits of what it can do, not only from a distance standpoint, but from a topography standpoint. So again, let's see if we can see what the reception is like with the microBEAM versus just the compact antenna here in just a few moments. So we'll be right back. KY4 BDP testing. So far, no luck trying to get the repeater to open. Every now and then off camera, I've been able to get the repeater to open, but it doesn't seem to be when I want the camera on. Isn't that the way it works? So we're still waiting on the receive signal to come back. We may not be able to open the repeater from this distance with this setup, but we should see a pronounced improvement in the reception here in another few moments. KY4 BDP testing.
N4LCA repeater system. Good afternoon.
And you can see here the bars coming to about right there, just below my pinky here. So we'll say 3 segments, whereas without the antenna, the microBEAM, just the compact antenna on the top of my truck, it was barely moving the needle at all. Could make out the audio, but it wasn't very clear. That's actually pretty clear. And so for a receive antenna, it's doing just fine at this distance. In fact, with more height, I would imagine that we'd also have a better opportunity to get into the repeater. All I have at the moment, though, is one more section of pole. So we're going to put that in next to see if it makes a difference. Height, in many cases, will make a difference. I just don't know that even with 3 sections of this pipe, that it will be enough. But you can tell on the receive that it was, in fact, much clearer, and we were getting about 3 segments. And so again, on the receive side, it's doing quite well. So I'll bring you back in the next segment after I put the 3rd pole on. I'll also show a little bit of B-roll of going up and down the pole so you can see that we've got a 3rd pole there, and then we'll try it out and see if not only do we receive better, can we finally crack open the repeater at such a long distance. Okay, so now we've shown you the 3rd section has been added. That gives us about an extra 7 feet. So we're about up 21 feet at this point. Whether or not that's going to be enough to, get past the mountain and or hills between here and the repeater. When I have used a Yagi at this location, I had about 20 feet for the Yagi at that night. And was able to get in and participate with the net that we run on Sunday nights. But, I'm just not sure that this antenna is directional enough in this instance where we can get in. But I got a feeling the reception's still going to be quite good. We're looking at 28 past the hour when the repeater will at least ID, and then we can see what the reception is like. But let's try the mic here. Let's transmit, and let's see if that extra 7 feet is enough to get us out. KY4 BDP testing. So I'm still not cracking open the repeater at high power. You can see down there at the bottom, transmit power is high, and we're just not able to crack open the repeater. Occasionally, if I just kerchunk the repeater, which, by the way, you're not supposed to do, I have gotten the repeater to open, but it's obviously never at a time when I've got the camera rolling. So here I've done 2 kerchunks that I probably shouldn't do. KY4 BDP testing. But even when I put out my call sign, just can't seem to catch that on camera. So I hate to tell you that I have opened the repeater with this setup, at least briefly. But that's all I can tell you right now. I've not actually caught that on camera, but with this antenna setup, I've done it with just 2 sections and was hoping with a 3rd section that maybe that additional height would give us what we need. So we're going to pause for just a moment. We'll come back at 28 past the hour, and we'll see if the reception is any better. I kerchunked the repeater and got it to come back. So seems like when my camera is really close to the head unit, it wasn't working. As soon as I would stop filming, it would work. So I've pulled the camera back but zoomed in and was able to get me kerchunking the repeater, which again you shouldn't do, just to see if I can get in. KY4 BDP testing. Anytime that I seem to put out my call sign and so forth, it doesn't work. But sometimes when I kerchunk, it does. So with one kerchunk, that's not a test really, but again, there's just barely enough forward gain or forward transmit gain to briefly maybe open up the repeaters. So, but it's not enough to communicate with anybody or to run a net. So again, we'll come back at 28 past the hour and we'll see if our reception's a little better. So I was able to put my call sign out. Maybe somebody heard the audio, but there's a chance that there's just enough of the tone getting through to open up the repeater, but my audio may not be there or registering on the other end. So, but was able to bring up the repeater briefly, putting out my call sign. That was the first time that's actually worked at this new height. We're just about to switch over to 28 past the hour. You can see there in the top right corner. So we are going to get an ID here in just a few moments.
Repeater ID.
And we're getting 4 bars now. So we did improve the reception, and I would imagine if we're getting 4 bars on the receive, maybe we're getting out a little bit better. KY4 BDP testing. I did open up the repeater, but again, whether or not somebody can hear my audio, because sometimes it'll be, again, the tone is opening up the repeater, but my audio is not strong enough. And unless somebody comes back to me here in just a moment. But it is opening the repeater, and the receive, occasionally it's opening the repeater with this about 21 foot of mast here, or pole. It is able to open the repeater from 51 miles away, but not terribly useful from the standpoint of communicating with somebody. Now, I'm guessing if I got this up another, say, 40 feet, maybe 50 feet on a tower, something like that, I would have much better odds of opening the repeater and being able to have a conversation. But at the present, KY4 BDP testing. At present, I'm opening up the repeater and getting about what I call 4 bars on this display, which is not bad at all at 51 miles away. And that's one of the things that Dr. Jack Nielsen talks about, is this antenna up in an attic is much better, or is designed to be better, with certain obstructions up in an attic type situation. Probably not at 51 miles away from a repeater, but say a dozen miles, maybe a few more miles away up in the attic, and it should work pretty well. Pretty compact as far as antennas go, and that's what we're trying to test today. Now we're going to get a little bit closer. Given that here at the future compound, we're barely able to open the repeater but the receive again is quite good. So pretty happy with that, but it was a stretch to think that it was going to work at such a long distance. But we'll try one more time. Let's put our call out one more time. KY4 BDP testing the microBEAM antenna in audio check. If anybody can hear my audio, please come back. See, that time it didn't get a reply back from the repeater, meaning that there's a chance we're not holding it up well enough for that. Let's try one more time. KY4 BDP testing the microBEAM antenna for an audio check. Nothing. So just from a transmit standpoint, I'm thinking it's probably 5 miles. Topology makes a difference. I'm going to go up on a ridge on the next test here, not too far away here in Tennessee, and that will give me an even better opportunity to get in. But I'm thinking height and hills and trees and whatnot are just a little too much from this distance. So in the next segment, we will have repositioned. We'll be up on a ridge about 5 miles away. I'll show you a map of all of this, and we'll see if we can get into the repeater and have a conversation at 40-something miles away. Okay, so I've moved about 4 or 5 miles closer to the repeater. In fact, if we really zoom in on the horizon, you can see I'm on top of a ridge looking at another ridge with an antenna on it. So that's not the repeater, but it's just to kind of give you an idea. And this is also the location for a number of cell towers. So they usually will put these in advantageous positions. Here in rural Kentucky and Tennessee, which is where I'm at right now, is actually in Tennessee, and there's 2 more towers in front of me there. So you can see those just to the left and to the right of the power pole. So there's a really good chance from up here we're going to be able to get into the repeater better. We'll see. You know, we're still 40-something miles away. I'll put a map up to show it, but let's give it a try here in the next segment. Alrighty, so to kind of give us a baseline here, you'll notice that we're still on the 146880 repeater. And it should ID here in a little bit, but I may literally be able to pick this up with the compact antenna that's just sitting on the roof of my truck. Now I may not, because again, we're still 40-something miles away. But let's just use the antenna on top of the roof here, not the microBEAM. I don't have that connected just yet. And just see if we can get a baseline, either from a transmit perspective and or a receive perspective. Because remember, down at the property, barely touching the meter here on receive with just the compact antenna on the roof of the truck. KY4 BDP testing, needing an audio check if possible. Yeah, so you can see. And we got the repeater to also ID. So there's a really good chance somebody just heard me. And again, I'm much higher up. I would say I'm an additional elevation-wise 100 feet. And this is the ridge that is actually in my way that I'm on right now, that I came 4 or 5 miles forward. This is the ridge that's kind of in my way, so barely able to reach the repeater. But from up here, you could see just with the compact antenna on the top of my truck, much better receive, and I would imagine I'm probably getting into the repeater better as well. Let's try one more time here. KY4 BDP testing, getting a baseline here with a regular compact antenna on the roof of my truck. Just a quick audio check if anybody is listening. So let's see what we've got here. But again, we're not in the red on the strength meter coming back with just the regular compact antenna, but right up to the edge there where it turns blue. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 segments, if you will, on the receive side. So we may have to just leave it at that for now. But again, this is just the regular compact antenna, and you can see the strength of that tail coming back. Not quite red, just short of that, and that's at quite a distance. So I'm really pleased with the distance this antenna is getting. With a little bit more height, I feel like we would have the ability to get into the repeater even 5 miles further back. Let's now go ahead and connect the microBEAM and we'll try it on 2 meters, and I'll also try to get into the 440 repeater, the 70 centimeters. We haven't tested that much yet. So in the next segment here, we'll come back and we'll have the microBEAM connected, and we'll see if we can't reach out and get somebody to come back and see if that signal strength, the tail, or a conversation is a little bit stronger. Be right back. Alrighty, so just showed you some B-roll of the current setup. Now I'm just using 2 of the poles because the ridge is giving me all the height that I could really want in this situation. And again, this is the ridge that's kind of in my way down at the property. But we were occasionally able to open up the repeater even then with just 2 or 3 poles on this drive-on mast. Let's see what the performance is 40 plus miles away, 45 or so miles away, with the microBEAM in the same situation, and maybe we'll get somebody to come back and talk to us. KY4 BDP testing now the microBEAM. Anybody out there that can give me a radio check or a signal strength check, please do so now. Yeah, see, full strength and full quieting. If you saw that red, we went all the way into the red here with the microBEAM. Again, on that tail that's coming back, which is on the receive side. So the antenna is quite a bit better on the receive compared to just the standard compact antenna, which is understandable. Those 2 hoops in the back, the reflectors, are helping out greatly. KY4 BDP testing the microBEAM on 2 meters. If anybody is listening to today's repeater and can give me a signal check or a strength check, that would be wonderful. I am recording a video as well, so your voice will go in the next YouTube video.
KY4 BDP, KY4 DPD. Last transmission sounded really good, perfectly readable.
And they're a lot clearer.
Well, that time I've got 2 of you to come back. I know I got Doug, KY4 DPD. Somebody else was in there as well. Sounds like you guys are reading me pretty well. You guys are full strength, full quieting on the round trip back to the microBEAM antenna. Doug, go ahead.
Last transmission sounded really good, Brian. No problems understanding your transmission, over.
Roger that. Yeah, the microBEAM seems to be doing really well on receive. Definitely some gain on the receive, but had to get up on a ridge here in Middle Tennessee to get into the repeater. But I'm still 45 plus miles away, so I'm pretty chuffed at the performance. There was somebody else in there besides Doug. What was the signal report from you?
Good afternoon, Brian. Good to hear you all the way from Middle Tennessee up here to Somerset. This is Mike, KD6FTR. You sound great.
Wonderful. Well, good to hear from you, Mike. I know both of you are up in Somerset. Yeah, I'm 45 miles away. I'm on the south side of Dale Hollow, so I'm still, well, technically there's a finger that's a little bit south of me, but I got up on this ridge from the property. I could just barely open the repeater occasionally, and that's even with 3 lengths of pole on the drive-on mast. But up here on the ridge, everything is much, much clearer. I appreciate you guys coming back to me on this distance test with the microBEAM antenna from Compact Antenna. Thank you both. Appreciate you coming back. You guys will be able to hear yourselves on the next video.
All right, Brian. I'll let you get back to your thing there. Good talking to you. KY4 BDP. This is KD6FTR, Somerset, 73.
KY4 BDP, KY4 DPD. Have a great day, sir.
So from a distance check standpoint, I feel like this will go even further. It's just that with the topography here in South Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, northern Middle Tennessee, if I get up on one of these ridges, it wouldn't be a problem. In fact, there's another ridge behind me about 8 miles, and I would imagine I could probably get into that just fine. So I'm going to switch over to 440. Let's see if we can hit the 440 repeater, and don't know if anybody is monitoring that today. but let's see how we're doing on 70 centimeters in the next segment. Alrighty, so this is the 70 centimeter repeater, AC4DM. It's on 443-600. As you'll see, we have, of course, a 5 meg offset. So we will see how well we are getting into this one, if at all. 70 centimeters is a little bit more difficult the further away you get. But let's see, because 2 meters was rocking 40-something miles away. Let's see how we're doing with the 440 machine. KY4 BDP testing the microBEAM's antenna on 70 centimeters. If anybody's out there monitoring this frequency. See, we didn't get a tail back on that one. So again, 70 centimeters is going to be a little bit more difficult from a distance standpoint. And we still have some ridges and so forth between us and the repeater. I think we're using an antenna that's just a little bit lower than the 2 meter repeater at the 88 site, but nonetheless, just wanted to try it just to see if we could get in, but it doesn't look like at this distance the 70 centimeters is going to work, so we'll stick with 2 meters. Alrighty, well, we have done repeater work so far with the microBEAM antenna, and what I want to do next is to test out simplex capability with this antenna. Now, this is highly dependent on where you are. Are you high? For instance, I'm on a ridge here in Middle Tennessee, northern Middle Tennessee, and who else is going to participate in the simplex net? It's not going to be a guarantee that I'll get somebody close enough to me that will be able to hear my signal, but we're going to give it a try, and then if I do get somebody, I will triangulate that or show you on a map how far away we are from each other. But we're going to give it a shot, and it may or may not work depending on who's participating tonight for the simplex net. Now, the clock in the top right corner will switch to 15 past the hour, and then what we'll do is we'll see if I can hear not only net control, may not, but somebody closer to me. And again, simplex doesn't use a repeater, so this will be radio to radio communication. So keep an eye on that clock. I'll probably cut out the little bit here between now and 15 past the hour, and we'll get started here in just a moment. All right, so that's net control, and I'm barely picking him up, which is actually pretty good that I'm hearing him at all. So I'm not going to reply to him directly. I'm hoping somebody else will come in a little bit clearer, and we'll see if we can't check in tonight on simplex. But that's pretty good that we're picking him up on simplex. So he's putting out a call. Let's see if somebody comes back to him. He came in pretty well. I may wait for Steve to put a call out. I hear him better than I heard Ben. KK4YUG.
Repeater
Of course, the repeater's full scale. Repeater's not participating. All right, so Steve's going to put out a call in his area, it sounds like.
Roger that, Brother Ben. Yeah, it might just be me and you again. It's been there before. But I'll give it a shot. This is KK4YUG for the Lake Cumberland Area Simplex Net. We hold this net each Sunday after the weather.
Now, I'm on high power, so we'll give it a try. Steve's got a pretty good antenna, but I just don't know if we've got enough directional here with the microBEAM for this to work, but we can definitely hear him.
Send messages across the county and the surrounding areas to anybody that would need the information. If you would like to be relayed in by me, KK4YUG, call now.
This is KY4BDP. Now we wait.
I would like to acknowledge AC4AG Austin. Welcome to the Relay Net. Would you like to put out a call in your area?
So he could hear Austin, but he didn't hear me, I don't think. Let's see if I can hear Austin.
All right, that sounds good.
Austin's a little closer to me.
Change something on the radio. All right, thanks, Chief. Appreciate that. This is AC4AG, relay station for the Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association, 146.880. Emergency, no, I'm sorry. 146.880 Simplex Net. The purpose of this net is to try to see how far we can get without the use of a repeater. If anybody can hear me and would like to try to be relayed in, please call AC4AG at this time.
This is KY4BDP. Now we wait again.
All right, KK4YUG, nothing. This is AC4AG, nothing heard.
Yeah, he didn't pick me up.
Have a great day.
So again, this is where the microBEAM has really good receive. There's a decent amount of gain here on the receive side, but just not enough forward momentum.
We'll try it again next time. Are there any other stations out there wishing to be
I'll try
relayed
again.
to the Lake Cumberland Area Simplex Net? Please call KK4YUG now.
This is KY4BDP.
AC4DM.
Now Don's coming in really, really strong. He's on a beam.
Well, good evening, Brother Don. AC4DM. Would you like to give a call out in your area for us tonight?
Don might be able to pick me up depending on how his antenna is placed.
AC4DM on the 146.880.
He's got a, I believe, a 9-element beam, maybe more than that.
BDP, I have a copy on you.
Oh, there we go.
I borrow on you, but I am copying you. You copy me, go ahead.
Roger, Roger, AC4DM. This is KY4BDP. Would you like me to go ahead and put a call out in my area?
If you would, go ahead and make a call out in your area there, Brian.
Roger, Roger. This is KY4BDP for the Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Simplex Net. And we hold this net every Sunday after our regular net without, that's right, without the aid of a repeater. This is radio-to-radio communication. If you can hear the sound of my voice and you would like to participate tonight, I can relay you in to KK4JPX net control in Somerset, Kentucky. So if you can hear the sound of my voice, please call KY4BDP now. Now, I don't expect to pick up anybody here, although we do have 1 or 2 stations between me and Somerset, but many times they don't participate on Simplex. But Don probably has his beam pointed right at me because he's coming in very strong. AC4DM, this is KY4BDP. Nothing heard on this side. You must have your beam pointed at me pretty good. You're coming in pretty strong. Thanks for relaying me in tonight's Simplex Net. KY4BDP, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'm just noticing there you have 1 and 2 bars fluctuating back and forth. A good solid copy on you. No problem understanding. KK4YUG, check in KY4BDP, and from AC4DM on you. He had no check-ins on his call out. AC4DM, back to you.
Roger that, Brother Don, and we appreciate your participation and Brian's. And we'll break with you and move on down to KO4ZXJ. This is KK4YUG, over.
Now this is a case where you may hear one side of the conversation but not the other, and it's very similar to like HF. When you're running HF frequencies, 20 meters, 40 meters, 80 meters, some of those frequencies, a lot of times you'll hear one side of the station because of the way it's skipping through the atmosphere, but you're not hearing the other side of the conversation because they're either too close to you or their signal's skipping over you. But here, this is just radio to radio. It's almost near line of sight, if not line of sight. And so we're only hearing Steve in this case. I don't know if the other station got back with him. So this simplex test was helpful. Keep in mind, AC4DM does have a beam. He was probably pointed at me or close to me, so he could pick up my my signal. But that's still fun. We don't get a lot of simplex down into Tennessee. And again, I'll throw up a map to kind of show you that distance between where Don is and where I'm at to make this work. And as they finish up the net here, I will finish up the video for the microBEAM this time around. Distance-based tests, both for repeater and for simplex. And success on both. Very good success on both. For the Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association, I'm KY4BDP. Appreciate you guys watching. Take a look at the microBEAM, and we'll see you in part number 3 at a future date. Thanks for watching, and 73.